Okay. So, yeah, before we get started, we definitely wanted to say thank you to our sponsors. Without them, this event wouldn't be possible. So, the Ministry of Colleges, Universities, Research, Excellence, and Security, Business and Higher Education Roundtable, as well as D2L, Ed2Go, Seawell, MyTax, and OnCat. So now a Microcredential Summit is in its ninth year and it's brought together leaders from higher education, government, industry to co-create the future of microcredentials and their role in transforming skills pathways for workforce development. The summit's going to highlight how post-secondary institutions and industry partners are equipping Ontario's workers and businesses with the tools and talent they need to thrive in the age of artificial intelligence. So first up, we have our guests, Michelle, Gail, and Patrick from NBCC Credential Centre, and they're going to be speaking on meeting the needs of the modern learner. So I'm going to stop sharing now and I'll let them take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Make sure you can see everything. How's that?
I'm seeing it.
You're seeing it? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending this session today. We work for New Brunswick Community College, which you heard referred to as NBCC, and we're here to talk to you about one of our current initiatives that we have called the Credential Centre. So I'll introduce myself, and my name's Michelle Chisholm, and I am a learning design consultant for prior learning. My main focus at the college is working on both PLAR, prior learning assessment and recognition, and microcredentials. Additionally, I'm a board member for the Canadian Association for Prior Learning, which is commonly referred to as CAPLA, and I instruct the Preparing for Prior Learning Assessment course at the University of New Brunswick. So, Gail?
Hi, everyone. I'm Gail McLaughlin-Obey, and I'm a Business Development Manager of Special Projects for the School of Professional and Part-Time Learning. And my main focus is the development of micro-credentials. So I work very closely with Michelle on that. And now I work with both Patrick and Michelle on the role of micro-credentials as it relates to the PLAR process and the Credential Center model. Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Gil. My name's Patrick. I work as an RPL consultant at NBCC, and I've been working with Michelle for, boy, 5 or 6 years now, I want to say, on various initiatives and innovations related to recognition of prior learning. And we're going to tell you all about that today.
And Pat is also a member of the board for CAPLA
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, that's right.
So just a little bit about the New Brunswick Community College. We were founded in 1974, so we just recently celebrated our 50th anniversary. We are a Crown Corporation, which means that we are owned by the provincial government, but we operate as our own entity. So outside of that, we have 6 campuses across the province of New Brunswick. We welcome over 10,000 learners annually. We have over 900 faculty and staff, and we offer over 90 full-time vocational programs, as well as many other professional and part-time learning offerings.
Okay, our vision. Our vision as a team that works both on PLAR and microcredentials is to offer PLAR services to anyone. And our department, along with the college as a whole, are focused on expanding these services to fit more learners than ever. And that's our inspiration going through this presentation. So next, we'd like to talk about Trevor's journey. Trevor is a hypothetical future NBCC student, and we use him to demonstrate the current state of PLAR services at New Brunswick Community College. So first, let's get to know Trevor a little bit better. Trevor has previous work experience and a degree that is unrelated to his future area of study. He has competing responsibilities, much like we all do, like family, work, and hobbies. So he has limited time and money to spend on formal education. He has worked in the same industry for years, yet he still has some skill gaps in some areas. He's interested in going back to school, but he finds the process intimidating to even start. So let's talk about Trevor's experience if he were to hypothetically come to New Brunswick Community College and access our PLAR services. So the first barrier or first roadblock we see is a lack of flexible offerings. So to even be considered for PLAR, Trevor must first apply, be accepted, and enrolled at a program at New Brunswick Community College. Additionally, he can only apply for PLAR credits for courses during its scheduled term, meaning if Trevor wishes to PLAR for math, for example, he can only apply for PLAR during the winter term when that course takes place. Trevor is sitting in that math class until he receives word that his application was approved or not approved. And if Trevor is successful, he can't take elective courses instead of those that he PLAR'd out of. Lack of awareness. When discussing PLAR services with learners, we've become aware that many don't even know what options they have and when it comes to validating their formal learning and their former experience. Additionally, through conversations internally and looking at research externally, we have noted that lots of staff, faculty of institutions often are unaware of PLAR services of their own institutions and the process that involves those services as well. There's also the complexity of application for Trevor if he were to go through this process at NBCC. Trevor not only has to wait until scheduled terms to apply, he also has to submit separate applications for each course he wishes to PLAR for. Additionally, the college only accepts portfolio-based applications at this time. And as professionals, I'm sure we can all attest to the fact that making a portfolio is a skill in itself. So that means that we're asking Trevor not only to prove his skills related to a certain area of study, we're also asking him to demonstrate his portfolio making skills. And if Trevor is successful with his PLAR application, he does not receive any financial compensation. Therefore, Trevor's journey is one of little flexibility and little reward. So recognizing this and understanding that our PLAR processes at the college do have some significant barriers, we were inspired by Trevor's journey. And we received funding through Future Skills Canada as part of the initiative called Atlantic Colleges Atlantique. And our PLAR team ran a pilot program during the time of November 2021 and fall 2022. So this pilot was to experiment with expanding our PLAR services and was open to anyone who wished to participate on a continuous intake basis. So we focused on 2 IT programs, you can see listed on the slide, web and mobile app development and programmer analysts. And the participation was free for learners because it was a pilot and we wanted to see what the results were going and what the feedback was from these learners. If the learners were successful, they received credit equivalencies on an NBCC transcript like any full-time student. And the results of this pilot inspired us to write a detailed research report that we called PLAR for Everyone. And that segues to my colleague Pat, which he's going to talk a bit about the report.
Thanks, Michelle. So the learning we had from kind of looking at internally at what our services currently look like, combined with the pilot, that kind of continues to inform everything we're doing now. And the concept we came up with was something we internally refer to as PLAR for everyone. And that's really kind of sticking to our vision of what it is we want to be able to do. So coming out of that pilot, we started looking at, well, what are our core sort of fundamental pillars that we want to see in these services as we go forward. And this is sort of what we've come up with. Accessibility is, of course, still the number one. We want anyone to be able to take it at any time from anywhere. The idea that we were basically restricting the entire process only to enrolled full-time students was kind of a non-starter for us. So where do we go from there? That was number one. Transparency. During the pilot, we had all of our participants do a fairly thorough self-assessment before they even started. That was a way to expose them not only to what it is that they were going to be involving themselves in, but also making sure they really understood to what level, depth, and rigor they were going to be evaluated so that they would know that going in. And that's, of course, why guidance and advising continues to be a big part of that. The assessment itself, Michelle mentioned, we were only doing portfolio assessments, which is pretty typical. And, for a lot of situations that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, where we're looking at specifically careers and vocations, we wanted to make sure that our assessments were authentic to what people were actually going to be expected to do in the workplace. It's kind of a core belief that, that's kind of what industry really wants to see is, can Can they build a wall? Can they build a website? Can they do this and that? Can they solve these problems? And those are the kind of assessments that we intend to put them through. Related to that, of course, is also, the transcript. We will want to make sure that it actually shows exactly what it is that the person demonstrated for us. And in terms of sustainability, where the previous offering was free, if you're an enrolled student, of course, we recognize that, we need to make sure that we have a cost associated with this service in the future, just to make sure that it's going to be available for a lot of people to take advantage of in the future. That ties also into us wanting to have, a lot of industry partners who we can help basically acknowledge and recognize their learners as well. And that also ties into our microcredential program, which has been a very big factor in what we're able to offer through credential services, through the Credential Centre, rather. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. So the Credential Centre is what we've currently been working on. And it's essentially version 2.0 of what we did in the pilot. We had a lot of time to learn and digest and really get to know our processes and systems internally at the college. And so what we've done essentially to widen and broaden access to these services, we've decided to set up an entire secondary service that will complement what we already have. So the Credential Center is essentially an online marketplace. Someone with existing skills and knowledge could browse through a catalog of existing evaluations that we've done before or prepared already. If they find something that relates to them, let's say they're working in, as a personal support care worker, that's one of the things that's up on our agenda early on. They could self-assess for the microcredential offerings that we have, just to see exactly how their own experience actually lines up with the content of those courses. They can self-register right then and there on the website, and that will lead them directly into the learning management system, Brightspace, of course, in our case, where they can immediately start working on those assessments, which will notify an instructor who can then perform the assessment and issue a result. In this case, that's going to be a digital badge, which again is going to have very specific descriptions of exactly what it is that's been demonstrated and to what depth. And the idea here and the beautiful part of the digital badge is that the person now has this formal document from a recognized institution, and they can kind of choose on their own where to go with that. We recognize, for example, that a lot of people, they might take these evaluations just to either find new work or move up in their existing work. They could be, having that formal piece of documentation, it can be a huge help in that regard. We also think that there's the potential to take those badges and make them part of a full-time application. So the person could essentially submit those, show us what they've already done, and then we can accept those directly at the registrar's office. In terms of offerings, I just want to recover this again real quick. I think I mentioned we're focusing specifically on career areas to start. The idea being that we know we have to start with a small number of offerings, and we think we can have a large impact on a group of people that way. Any sort of workplace essential skills will also be covered, which is the kind of thing that someone could theoretically do directly out of high school even. And of course, microcredentials, I mentioned, tie largely into this because they are the perfect sort of size for this type of evaluation. I'm going to pass it over to Gail to tell you a little bit more about how our microcredentials actually work.
All right. So our microcredential framework closely aligns with the key points of convergence outlined in the Futures Micro March 2022 report by the Future Skills Centre in partnership with eCampus Ontario and others. So a big shout out to eCampus Ontario and your project partners for this excellent research. It has really guided us tremendously on our microcredential journey. One of our key takeaways from this report is that even though colleges and universities across Canada may define microcredentials in slightly different ways, there's strong consensus on what truly matters, and it's these 5 fundamental characteristics. It's these characteristics that consistently guide our microcredential design. So microcredentials need to focus on specific competencies needed in the workplace. They can stand alone as an individual credential or be stacked with other microcredentials to form a larger credential. They must be employer or employment relevant, designed in consultation with industry experts based on competencies needed in the workplace. They're designed to be short duration as learners are focused on acquiring skills quickly. And most importantly, the larger words on that screen, they're authentically assessed. And that's what we feel is the differentiator for a microcredential. Learners actually demonstrate what they can do through authentic assessment designed to replicate real-world tasks, and the microcredential becomes the evidence of this learning. And that's, as Patrick mentioned, the authentic assessment and microcredentials also make it a perfect fit for PLAR. Because the assessment is built into the curriculum from the start, we're able to use the assessment to evaluate what learners can already do even before they take any learning. Learners will be able to have their prior learning recognized and earn a microcredential sooner, or be directed for further learning to further learning if need be. And that's the role of microcredentials in our Credential Centre model. And in terms of, Patrick mentioned the digital badge. So here's just an example of our digital badge. So we have the digital badge image, the name of the microcredential, the description and areas of study. We have the program outcomes, and we have the forms of assessment and evidence that explains what the learner can do. And we have the assessment criteria that explains how well the learner can do it.
Okay. So regarding the development of microcredentials, there are a few lessons learned that Gail and I have accumulated along the way. First, accessibility is paramount. Elements like delivery mode, scheduled hours, tuition and admissions requirements affect enrollment and retention rates. So for example, one of our offerings, agricultural essentials equipment maintenance, we had originally set our admissions requirements to completion of high school. We recognized that our enrollment for that offering was low, so we dug deeper into our intended audience. And what we learned was that many potential learners were currently enrolled in high school, so not complete, never completed high school, or were international and didn't have the documentation to prove that they had completed high school. So we changed our admission requirements from that high school completion to 16 years of age, and our enrollment shot from 3 to 16 overnight. And that was just such a huge aha moment for both Gail and I. Next, we have a research supports results. When new concepts are proposed, detailed industry research is required to ensure the need of for both learners and workforce. And for example, we were approached from an instructor internally at New Brunswick Community College about a concept for music production as a microcredential. But we did some digging. We discussed with industry members and other organizations involved with the music industry in New Brunswick about this concept. And what we did realize is that the need for the people of this province and for the learners that we were targeting, the focus was to be on music business fundamentals. That's where the need was, rather than songwriting and production.
And the last lesson was industry buy-in gives recognition. So we've learned that bringing industry partners into curriculum design from the beginning leads to stronger, more relevant microcredentials. Industry expertise and often their endorsement helps ensure our programs meet real workforce needs. So one example, our child and youth community-based care series, we co-designed all 10 microcredentials with New Brunswick Association of Youth Residential Services. And because of that collaboration, employers have supported and encouraged staff to participate from day one. The demand has stayed strong. This program takes a year and a half to complete all 10 in the stackable series, and is now in its third delivery with seats consistently filled. And the majority are sponsored seats from employers. And as a highlight for us, we've had our first learner to complete the series through PLAR, which has been an encouraging test for our Credential Centre model.
You're muted, Pat.
Thank you very much. Of course I am. Looking ahead, really a lot of what we're going to be doing now is, like I said, we're preparing for a launch at the moment, but there's going to be a lot of learning still to do after that, and a lot of integration works that still have to happen with that. We've already been working with our registrar's office, as we mentioned, for example, to make sure that these credentials can be recognized, but we still have streamlining to do there. Similarly, we want to make sure that we can get better at recognizing international certifications as well, and so we're doing work and doing research there to improve those things as well. And last but not least, we expect the Credential Center, of course, to be a pretty significant source of new information and data for us as well, both in terms of what kind of pathways people are actually interested in and what kind of other micro-credential offerings we should be looking at for going forward. So that's just a small taste of where we're headed. And I see we still have a few minutes left and a few questions.
I'll leave the emails up here too in case anyone wants to contact us after, and we can always share those things afterwards too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we do have a couple questions in the chat. If you pull up the Q&A box. Self-assessment tools are powerful, but they also rely on learners' confidence and self-awareness. Have you encountered tension between authentic workplace assessment and traditional academic expectations, and how did you resolve that?
Those, I think those are two questions, right?
Yeah, those are two questions.
Got
Do you
it.
want to comment on the self-assessment piece, and then I can go ahead and comment on the authentic workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. They are powerful, and in our pilot, for example, just to give you a sense, our intention all along was that we knew we were going to be working with a pretty small group, since we were just working in, half a year in one area of study. But I will say that from the original cohort of something like 35, through the process of just investigation and self-assessment, we ended up whittling down to about eight. Uh, and those people had a pretty good success rate, is the good news. But we
Yeah.
do believe that the self-assessments played a pretty significant role in that. Was it perfect? No, absolutely not. And we do know that people are probably more likely to have additional confidence in their abilities over what they actually are. And if that's the case, then, I feel the impact we've seen of it so far has not been too negative that we've been concerned about it. But it is something that we're aware of. And of course, we want to continue to improve those processes if we can. But that's something we're going to learn once we're going as well and seeing our success rates. So it's,
Yeah, hearing the
Yeah.
people.
Okay, so I'll answer the question about the authentic workplace assessment and traditional academic expectations. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the benefits for us is that we have been working on this for 5 years. So we did mention the pilot. And so one of the big portions of that pilot, and additionally the work on the report and the Credential Center itself, has been the buy-in. And it's been a long ride. Like Pat and I have had many a conversation with instructors, with internal like staff members that are on in the academic department. And what it comes down to from what we have seen is the proof is in the pudding. So when we ran the pilot, we showed the rigor and the intensity and the capabilities of our participants to these instructors, as they were the ones completing the assessments as well. Additionally, when developing the Credential Center, as Pat mentioned, we're still getting ready to launch. One of the things that we have done is use existing evaluations and assessments for our full-time programs. So we're looking at some of the same skills, and we have the benefit of the fact that a lot of our instructors use more authentic-based assessments, workplace-based assessments, but we have just collaborated on every single thing that we possibly could, especially when it comes to the types of assessment, because it's not your traditional academic evaluations that you're looking at. But what we have found, number one, is including instructors, including everyone involved at the college as much as possible in the process of developing these evaluations, and also using their ideas for some of the evaluations too. We've felt that that has benefited us greatly. I hope that answers your question. If you have a follow-up, feel free. Should I answer live to some of the other ones?
Yeah, I was going to say we
Okay.
have a couple more minutes left.
I,
Yeah,
I,
about 3 more minutes left. So before our
I
next
can speak to
question.
this next one, I think, too, if you'd like to take
Okay,
a
go
short
ahead.
break.
Go for it.
So, do you see particular age groups or career stages engaging more with the Credential Center? Yes. So the idea is that it's open to anyone, literally in terms of ages. But we do think that, especially in New Brunswick, the data we've seen shows that there's a lot of people who are already working and in a career who would like to have more credentials, but getting there is not that easy. And I think this comes back a lot to that journey of that Trevor's journey that Michelle described earlier. The Trevors of New Brunswick, we know, are scared away by what we're currently offering. And so part of our goal is to make it more appealing to people who already have work, who are already in a career, who already have families established. So in terms of, ages, that could be anywhere from, 30 to 60, I don't know. It's a wide range, I would say. But we are definitely want to make sure that we capture that group of people who currently wouldn't even really consider going back to college or through more education.
And Gail had shared earlier, I think it was already posted in the chat actually by organizers, but Pat and I published a version of our report. So there were two versions of PLAR for everyone. One was our internal copy that spoke mostly to our systems. Additionally, we have an external public copy of things that we thought were beneficial to other institutions. It's the PLAO journal that you see in there. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because we talk a lot about the demographics of New Brunswick and the people that we're targeting with the Credential Centre based on that. Okay, the question, could a person earn a microcredential through the PLAR process exclusively? Gail, do you want to give the tagline that we didn't include? Do you remember
Sure.
it? Do you remember
Take the
it?
training or claim your badge. So that is yes, due to that authentic assessment. Um, and this is why we say microcredentials is a perfect fit for this process. And the assessment itself, Michelle, you can talk more to that, but it'll be different than what's in the regular or the microcredential program itself. But it will be aligned to the competencies and the real world tasks and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's
Yep.
that's the plan.
Those are the two funnels. Take the training and then do the assessment. And if you're successful, badge, or claim your badge, which is do the assessment, potentially get your
And
badge if you're successful.
and
Pat,
we have in fact had one person do an entire micro-credential series
Yeah.
that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
They were a little bit our guinea pig, but
yeah.
they did great work. And even the instructors, the assessors were very happy with what they saw. I would say was a success, at least in that regard.
Mhm.
Pat, do you want to answer the data related question here at the top with the long-term success?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think again, where we're sort of, this is a pilot 2.0, so data collection is going to be a large part of this. We're hoping to have exit interviews essentially with anyone who goes through this in the first year, so we can learn exactly what it is they got out of it. Did they get what they thought they would? Did it change anything in their lives, and in their careers? So it's not something we can answer just yet, but we are absolutely going to be looking at all of those factors.
And Jeff, I can answer your question really quick. Two parts. Self-assessment that we mentioned earlier. Every offering that we have in the Credential Center will have an associated self-assessment that is directly related to the competencies evaluated with that authentic assessment. So people will be able to answer those questions to know if they're a good candidate for it. And then additionally, we do not have this person hired yet, but we had written in the report that we do really believe that in part of transparency, you need to have an individual working with learners to help them guide their pathways. So that person would serve as, I think, what did we call it? Learning pathways specialist, Pat? I think that's the term we called
Exactly.
it.
That's exactly what it was.
So it would be someone that would engage with that learner, find out more about them, and then help encourage them on whatever pathway would be best.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much for your session and letting us know more about the Credential Center and what's possible. Thank
Thank you for having
you.
us.
And their Michelle and Pat's published article is now in the chat.
Awesome.
Yeah, perfect. And
Don't
yeah,
hesitate to reach out.
yeah, everyone has
Yeah.
the emails in the slides. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks,
And so
everyone.
now we're going to welcome our next guest. We have Samantha Servey as well as Lanita Joe Gillett, and they're going to be speaking to us more about balancing affordability, accessibility, and diversity with Indigenous pedagogy and online learning. Thank you.
We're on? We're on, okay. Perfect, thank you, Sam. And thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we're going to begin with a short reflect. Gittimanadu Miigwech for bringing us together today. Miigwech for the land beneath our feet, the waters and the air, and for all of creation that supports life. We honor our ancestors and our elders. Gittimanadu for the teachings they have shared and continue to share with us. We ask for their guidance as we gather today in a good way. Help us stay connected to the good life so that what we do today supports balance and well-being for our families, our communities, and the generations yet to come. Miigwech Kichimanadu for this time together. Miigwech to one another. Ambe.
Miigwech Jojo for that. My name is Samantha Serby. I'm the Curriculum Development Coordinator at Oshki Pamajuan, the Wenjack Education Institute in Thunder Bay, Ontario. So after working in mainstream college systems for 8 years, I joined the team at Oshki in 2022 and have grown so much in my knowledge of curriculum and development and pedagogy since I've been here. So we're here today to share some of that learning with you in how we use inquiry-based learning in Indigenous-focused microcredentials, not just as a teaching strategy, but as a design solution, one that supports affordability, accessibility, and diversity while honoring Indigenous pedagogy in online learning environments.
Thank you, Sam. And hello, my name is Lenita Jogiet, or Jojo. My position at Oshki includes providing guidance on Indigenous pedagogy, and I work in Indigenous education with a focus on curriculum design, community health training, and culturally grounded learning at Oshki. I have been working for and alongside Indigenous communities for over 40 years and across K-12, post-secondary, provincial and federal education systems, as well as at the Ministry of Education Ontario with the Indigenous Education Office. My work at Oshki has included developing Indigenous-focused microcredentials and land and language-based learning initiatives rooted in community priorities. This work is guided by the good life and by working in truth and respect with community knowledge. Like Sam, my learning is deepened through this work, particularly in understanding how Indigenous pedagogy, inquiry-based design, and relational ways of learning can shape more accessible, relevant, and culturally safe online learning. Today, we're here to share how these teachings inform the way we design Indigenous-focused microcredentials, centering community, inquiry, and balance while addressing real barriers in online learning spaces. We respectfully acknowledge the land on which Oshki Wenjack operates as the traditional territory of Fort William First Nation, a signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. We honor the Anishinaabe peoples who have cared for and stewarded this land since time immemorial. We also recognize the many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island who are here with us today. As an Indigenous institution, we recognize the importance of staying connected to what sustains balance and well-being, our families, our lands, our teachings, our languages, and our traditional ways of life. These relationships guide our work and remind us of our responsibilities to one another, to our communities, and to future generations. Who are we? Oshki Pamajuan means a new beginning in Anishinaabemowin. Oshki Wenjack is an Indigenous post-secondary education institute serving Anishinaabe-Aski Nation territory. It was established in 1996 through a Chiefs Resolution of the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation and formally incorporated in 2001. Oshki Wenjack was created to provide culturally appropriate, community-driven education and training that reflects the priorities, strengths, and realities of our Nan communities. The mandate is rooted in Indigenous self-determination in education and in supporting learners in ways that are grounded in culture, language, and community. As an Indigenous Education Institute, our work focuses on developing and delivering post-secondary programs that respond to community-identified needs. We also work to strengthen Nan cultures, languages, teachings, and ways of life through education. And we build respectful partnerships with communities and post-secondary institutions at the local, regional, national, and international levels. Our mandates are to develop, enhance, and establish. To develop, design, and deliver post-secondary education programs and services to meet the education and cultural needs of the members and communities. To enhance, organize, and coordinate the delivery of post-secondary education and training programs and services. And to establish protocols and partnerships with post-secondary institutions and communities.
So for those of you who are not familiar with Anishinaabe Nation, or NAN, it is a large geographical area with 49 communities that are unique in their language, culture, and traditions. So when we began working on microcredentials, Jojo and I, alongside our team members, elder support, and community guidance, deliberated on how we could create meaningful, authentic educational experiences that serve the needs of 49 unique places. For example, one of our microcredential bundles is community health representative training. This is a massive healthcare worker role in our communities, with responsibilities that vary from transportation arrangement to providing health support. What one community health rep does on a day-to-day basis in their community may look vastly different from that of another.
Hey, Samantha, sorry to interrupt. We are not seeing the slides move if you meant to do that.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
definitely moving over here. So that's
Yeah.
concerning. Thanks for letting me know.
No worries. It's probably just presenter view or.
Okay. Let's see if we can try that again.
I didn't see any slides.
Is that visible?
Yes, we see designing for NAN communities, how we adopted the inquiry-based model.
Okay.
Great.
I'm just going to jump back, if you'll just give me a quick sec, just back to this slide here. Just as I'm talking about the slide I'm talking about, I'm referring to Anishinaabe Nation NAN territory, which is in the image on the left here. As you can see, it's a very large territory, and as I said, 49 unique communities within this territory, all with their own culture, traditions, and language. So I'll just pop back to my my slide I was at. So where I was at our community health representative training program, which is a microcredential bundle. And as I said, this role varies very vastly from one community to another. So it was a big undertaking for us to try and develop educational materials that suit community needs. It's never an option for us to not have relevant content for communities. So we had to get to work on coming up with a way to make things relevant to all our different communities. So through this presentation, we're hoping to empower all of the attendees and ourselves as well to recognize the unique challenges of developing online independent learning for Indigenous learners and why mainstream content-heavy models may fall short, to explore how inquiry-based microcredential design can support affordability, accessibility, and diversity while respecting Indigenous pedagogies, and finally, helping everyone to reflect on ways to adapt their own online or blended course to better honor relational, land-based, and community-centered approaches. So microcredentials are often designed to be fast, standardized, and easily replicated. While this makes sense from an institution standpoint, it can create tensions, especially when working with Indigenous learners and communities. The question becomes, how do we avoid reproducing colonial or one-size-fits-all frameworks in the name of efficiency? So microcredentials often prioritize speed, standardization, and scalable content, but this can unintentionally flatten Indigenous diversity, reproduce prescriptive or extractive models, and create access barriers for community-based learners.
We want to be clear that Indigenous pedagogies are not a single model or framework. They are diverse and rooted in distinct nations, communities, and contexts. What many Indigenous pedagogies share, however, is a rejection of universal answers and a strong emphasis on relationship, place, and lived experiences. This has important implications for how online learning is designed. Across many Indigenous pedagogical approaches, several shared principles often emerge. Knowledge is relational and contextual. Learning is grounded in land, language, and lived experience. Elders, families, and community are sources of expertise, and there is no single right answer across all communities.
So when we rely heavily on content delivery, especially in Indigenous contexts, we risk oversimplifying or misrepresenting communities. No single course can hold all the knowledge, nor should we expect to. Traditional online design often assumes that knowledge must be delivered by the institution, the content must be comprehensive and authoritative, and learning is often demonstrated through recall. This poses some challenges in Indigenous contexts. Assuming one Indigenous perspective instead of many distinct community knowledges, content becoming outdated or inappropriate, and community knowledge being sidelined are a few of those challenges.
For us, inquiry-based learning is not simply a teaching strategy layered onto content. In this model, we intentionally shift where knowledge lives. The course does not present itself as the authority. Instead, it acts as a guide, creating pathways, prompts, and supports that helps learners engage with knowing that already exists within their communities, within their lived experiences, and also within their local contexts. Rather than asking learners to passively consume information, we ask them to actively engage in inquiry. Learners are supported to locate relevant community-based resources, assess credibility and cultural relevance, apply learning to their own context, and reflect on their roles and responsibilities within their community. This approach honors learners as knowledge holders and knowledge builders, not just recipients. This is why we describe inquiry-based learning as a structural design decision, not just a pedagogy. It influences assessment, content delivery, learner autonomy, and how success is defined within the course. Instead of asking learners to consume content, we ask them to locate relevant community-based resources, assess credibility. I think I said this. This is a structural design choice. Rather than extracting Indigenous knowledge and fixing it into course content, an inquiry-based design approach creates space for learners to engage with knowledge in relationship with elders, community resources, land, and lived experience, while still drawing on Western evidence where it is useful and appropriate. Inquiry-based design aligns with Indigenous pedagogy by respecting local knowledge holders and community authority, avoiding prescriptive or one-size-fits-all best practices, encouraging relational, reflective, and content-based learning, and supporting 2IC by holding Indigenous and Western ways of knowing together.
So one of the unexpected benefits of this approach actually ended up being cost. Inquiry-based design reduces the need for expensive proprietary textbooks. Instead of centering learning on a single paid resource, inquiry focuses on questions, problems, and exploration. So learners aren't required to purchase costly materials just to participate in these courses. It also allows us to use open access and community-held and gathered resources. So learners can draw on publicly available materials, local knowledge, and community expertise rather than on commercial products. This not only lowers costs, but it also keeps learning grounded in real contexts rather than abstract or external content. Another affordability benefit is that it minimizes constant content redevelopment, which I know we all love. Because inquiry-based learning is built around guided questions and processes, the structure remains relevant even as information changes. This reduces the need to continually rewrite or repurchase content, saving time and money for institutions and for learners. And finally, inquiry-based design shifts value away from content ownership and toward the learning process itself. The emphasis isn't on who owns the material, but on how learners think, ask questions, and apply that knowledge. That shift supports more sustainable, affordable learning models over time. Another benefit of our inquiry-based model is actually accessibility. This one's a little less surprising than the affordability, but very important all the same. So many learners in community-based programs are navigating online education for the first time. Inquiry-based microcredentials support accessibility because they recognize that learners engage in different ways. Instead of relying only on reading and writing, learners can listen, observe, reflect, discuss, and learn by doing. This flexibility helps to remove barriers for people who may not thrive in westernized academic environments. They also value experiential and relational knowledge. Learners aren't treated as empty vessels in this system. What they bring from lived experience, community roles, and relationships is one of their biggest strengths. So learning starts from what people already know and then builds outward through inquiry, rather than positioning the institution as the sole authority on learning. Another key piece is reducing academic jargon. Inquiry-based microcredentials focus on clear, practical language connected to real-world questions. This makes learning more approachable and helps learners build confidence, especially those who may have had difficult or exclusionary experiences with formal education. Finally, this approach strongly supports adults, rural, and returning learners with its flexible modular structure.
Diversity in our microcredentials is not addressed by simply adding various content examples. It is embedded in the structure of the learning itself. Learners draw on different community resources, experiences, and ways of knowing to meet shared learning outcomes, and those differences are understood as indicators of success, not deviation. Rather than attempting to represent every community within the content, we design for differences from the onset. We expect and honor different answers and pathways, and we validate multiple ways of knowing and learning. The result is that learners see their own community reflected in the learning process without being reduced to examples.
So in closing, we call this approach when. The approach doesn't lower academic standards or reduce rigor. It shifts rigor towards reflection, responsibility, and relevance. And as we all know, relevance is central to microcredential design. In that way, Indigenous pedagogy isn't a constraint, it's a design strength. So in summary, inquiry-based Indigenous-informed design, that's a mouthful, honors Indigenous pedagogy, improves affordability, expands accessibility, and supports diversity without flattening difference. If there's one key takeaway that we hope everybody walks away with today, it's that designing with Indigenous pedagogy improves online learning for absolutely everyone.
As we close, we want to emphasize that microcredentials are not neutral tools. The design choices we make shape who can participate, who benefits, and what kinds of impacts are possible. When we look at impact, we often talk about access, completion, community impact, and system value. But numbers alone don't tell the whole story. What matters just as much as who the learning is designed for, whose knowledge shapes it, and what changes on the ground when learners complete it. We invite you to reflect on the microcredentials you support, fund, regulate, or design. Ask yourself, who can realistically access this learning? How are communities involved in defining relevance and quality? And does this learning create meaningful pathways forward? Indigenous-led, inquiry-based designs show us that access, quality, and accountability are strongest when communities are involved from the very beginning. When we design with intention and relationship, microcredentials become more than credentials. They become tools for meaningful change. Miigwech.
Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Samantha and Lenita. We do have some questions in the chat. Sorry, in the Q&A box.
Okay. Did you want to read them out or did you want me to read them? What's
Yeah,
easier
whichever
for
you prefer. Yeah.
you? Okay.
I'll read you answer.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Okay, when learners are asked to identify and assess community-based knowledge, how do you support them in navigating internal community power dynamics? For example, whose knowledge is recognized, whose is considered a knowledge holder? That's a very interesting question because, of course, the communities vary quite a bit, and there is no right or wrong answer. It's not up to us to decide who is a knowledge keeper or a knowledge holder. We're simply helping to guide the learner on the right path, and going through those motions alongside them. All of our learners are very well supported here. So we are in constant contact with them. We have, there's a few, I would say, drawbacks to being a very small institute, but at this time we are still quite small. I think we have about 300 students right now. So we are able to touch base with these students a lot and to answer any of those questions about whose knowledge might be recognized or any suggestions that we might have in terms of who they can go to for certain things.
And I think that this is a good time to add that the knowledge holder in these open-ended assignments is often asked to sign off on a conversation or a demonstration of skill at community level, and that's considered an authentic assessment practice.
Okay, hopefully that answered that. So have you encountered challenges in communicating the legitimacy of inquiry-based, community-situated learning outcomes to external partners, funders, or credential recognition bodies? So we are super, super lucky. We are accredited through IASC, which is an Indigenous accreditation program, and all of our partners generally are very also Indigenous-led different institutes. So we have been super lucky in terms of coming up to them with these pieces, and we all have a willingness to share and a willingness to learn and a willingness to adapt. So any questions that they might have, we're willing to answer. We're willing to work together to move forward to a solution. So I would have to say no to that just because we've been so blessed.
My initial impact was no. No, we've just been supported, and having conversations with our other institute partners has been very helpful. And it's exciting times because it does show a shift in pedagogy.
All right, so inquiry-based learning can require more self-direction. How do you support learners who may be returning to education after long absences and feel uncertainty or imposter syndrome in open-ended learning environments? That's an amazing question. I'm going to go back to something our wonderful elder Charlotte taught us not too long ago, was about lighting a fire. So she talked to us about being the spark that lights the fire within the learner to want to go through all of these different learning processes. So what we do is seek to provide an environment that's super supportive for our learners. And we seek to, as Charlotte says, thank you for that, though she's not here today, to light that spark and really bolster them up to have that self-confidence within themselves. So we do offer lots of learner supports and things for any questions. We have, everybody on hand in terms of mental health supports and stuff. So if they're feeling uncertain, they always have options to come to us. But we also, within our content, it's very, very, I don't know, what would you say? Passionate. We want them to become passionate about their own learning and feel that drive. And I think once they feel that passion and that drive, then there's no way that they can question themselves and their abilities.
And I think that even though the microcredentials are asynchronous and student-led, that doesn't mean that there's not a whole team of people here who are willing to support and help whenever that's needed. It's kind of like a graduation coach model. When whatever the student needs, you figure out a way to do it so that we can experience successes together.
So what does meaningful community consultation look like when developing the content online? This is actually a huge challenge for us because if you saw in our presentation, we serve a very large territory with 49 unique communities. So we spend a lot of time consulting with people all around our territory. We attend every single thing, or someone from our institute attends every single gathering that we possibly can. We have formed program advisory circles. So you guys probably have the program advisory committees if you're in mainstream, functions in much the same way. And we seek to have different types of representation in terms of different communities, what those communities look like. So whether they're a fly-in community or whether they're drivable or near an urban center, and also having elder and youth representation sitting on those program advisory circles, just to try and get as best as we can. We're never going to be able to have 49 different communities represented all the time, but that's part of why we use that inquiry-based model, is so that those communities and the people from their communities can kind of work together to guide the education in a way that fits their location.
And we also take our direction from Anishinaabe Nation. As we were created to serve Nan, we participate and take guidance from their governance. And the other thing I guess we can say is that if something doesn't make sense, we change it.
Absolutely. We're learning too. Okay, so are there aspects of Indigenous pedagogy that simply cannot be translated online, and how do you navigate those limits? I would say that this is a huge challenge, and we spend most of our time brainstorming different ways to engage the learner in more than just reading and writing. The great part about using an inquiry-based model is, though we have an online platform, though we use D2L Brightspace, like most of you are familiar with and probably use as well, a lot of the actual work that happens is the learner going out into the community and gathering that knowledge themselves. So what we have put together in our program, I mean, we have lots of like relevant videos and things like that, lots of IATs, as I'm sure most of you all are familiar with and use extensively. But we think of our learning as more of a guidebook that allows the learner to go out into community and be on the land and explore and gather that community knowledge, in addition to those resources and teachings that we've given online. So sometimes the online stuff that we have might not, some Indigenous pedagogies in the actual platform, you might have a hard time seeing them on the screen, but we're able to incorporate them in other ways using that inquiry-based model.
And I think the establishment of the portfolio and the capstone that moves through the project allows them to put together a toolkit that they can use in their place and space and apply it as needed moving forward. So it's the establishment of skills and knowledge for application, not just for knowing.
Okay, and I think this is our last question. Could you please provide some additional detail regarding the Community Health Representative Microcredential Bundle? Yes, we're super excited. We've been working on this project for quite some time, and it's a great example of our inquiry-based style of learning. So community health representatives, there's usually one or two per most communities. It's hard to ballpark that because communities are very different, but they are a role that has been changing very drastically over time. They work as a community health worker, and they do so many different jobs. It's wildly incredible. So we have a very large microcredential bundle. It's 11 microcredentials in total. And they're pretty exciting, pretty extensive. We've been working on it for a while. We are not beginning offerings until the beginning of April, but essentially it is to provide different pieces of training that are very specific for that community health representative role. So it's divided up into, tangible skills that they'll be able to use, whether we're talking about environmental pieces as in one course versus health promotion in another course, and all of those different
mental health, wellness, being, healthy eating and healthy living.
Yes, a bunch of different fun.
We're going to rate the fly sheet next week. So if you email us, we'll send it to you.
Yeah, we would be happy to speak further on this program. It's pretty exciting for us to be getting it up and running very shortly. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and a lot of work with the communities to figure out how we can best meet those needs in terms of preparing these employees, or some of them actually are already working as community health reps, and just kind of building those knowledge and skills for them. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I loved what You talked about lighting the spark within the learner, and I could not even imagine having 49 communities and consultations. You guys are doing amazing work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us and talking about diversity and accessibility. And that is our last session for today. Thank you everyone for joining. And if you haven't got your ticket for in person, that's February 11th and 12th at the Key in Toronto. So please join us. There's a link in the chat for that. And all these sessions will be posted on our YouTube channel next week, so you can always catch up on anything you missed. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.